Everyone, this is Krish. This is video number 9 in this series. In this one, I'm going to talk about my experience in performance and scalability, right? So that's one of the questions I get asked all the time as well. For getting feature and new app development, what have I done to improve the performance and scalability of existing applications, ones that have been in production either for a long time or just went live in the recent past, right? So again, I've done this work across stacks in Java, in Ruby, and in JavaScript as well. But I'm going to speak to it more generically because the problem itself is not it is stack agnostic, right? Uh, so how do you go about identifying performance issues, right? So how do they surface? The most obvious way for web applications is you go to a web page and it takes 3 seconds for the page to render. There is a problem, right? And the benchmarks could be defined by the clients, by the companies, which are in turn dictated by your end users and the nature of the business. But I think it'd be fair to say that if a page takes any longer than 1 second in this time and age as of 2019, then it's dreadfully slow, right? But if there are backend systems that integrate with third-party web services and other ETL tools and whatnot that don't impact the end user and it doesn't deal with the interaction with the end user, then those could potentially take much longer, right? I mean, batch jobs could take lengthy periods of time to run, depending on what they're trying to do. You run them infrequently in certain in the wee hours of morning or odd times of the day when you don't have peak usage. So I won't talk about it in this video. Right? In this one, I'm just talking about web apps or mobile apps where you have user interaction and you define that this page needs to return within a second or half a second or whatever that benchmark is. I've seen cases where it needs to return within like 300 milliseconds. And now that with single page apps, a lot of it or all of it happens on the client. So even if some of your server side requests take a longer period of time, you can hide it from the user. But regardless, right, let's just not go into those details. But let's just say, okay, if you see a page or a component that takes a long time to render, say you're working on a React component, whether it's a functional presentational component that essentially is slow, right? Now, before you go to that level, you see that the page is slow. You then go drill down, find out that it uses one or more components, and you start digging into those components, right? But I said I won't go into the actual library, sorry. But just as an example there, you start there, you try to tell which page is slow. Are all pages slow or is just one page slow, right? And or is that one page slow at all times or at certain times? Is it slow with one user, with one active session, or with multiple sessions? So you try to ask yourself a number of these standard questions to help you get to the problem faster. How long has this been in production? How recent is this problem? Are there any signs that this problem happened in the past? You go look up your issues and do some research looking into your tickets to see if this is a recurring issue or if it's a new issue. So a lot of those things, even before you get in the code, would give you a good sense for what you're dealing with here. And then you work your way towards the various tiers in the application, whether it's UI, middleware, backend, where the problems are. I'll get into more specifics in other videos because this has already gotten long enough. But I'll leave you with one note, one thought, right? Which is basically sometimes I've seen cases where someone tells a developer, hey, there is a problem, and they drill that down to a particular query. I'm just skipping through several layers. And then, okay, you find out that the query is taking too long, whether it's a NoSQL query or whether it's a traditional RDBMS query, right? And then you start tuning it. But I think there's a problem there, right? Before you start tuning it, you want to ask yourself why or if that query should even be executed to begin with, meaning is there a problem someplace else, right? Because fixing the query and optimizing it by either adding indexes or rewriting it using analytical tools and whatnot might help the cause, but it's more like lipstick on a pig, as they say, right? It's just hiding. It's a band-aid. It's not an actual fix. So you want to get to the actual problem and have a good understanding of what it is before you start implementing solutions at these levels. Of course, if it's a production application, you want to do whatever it takes to get that hot fix out there while you look at it. But it's important to note that just don't go about fixing the problem without understanding the repercussions of the problem and also understanding how it got to that point before you started fixing it. Cool. Thanks.